My guest today is Steve Merry. Steve is the co-founder of Scenario, a very, very cool looking, it's like an alerts platform which empowers you to take control with the information that matters to you. You know how they say signal from noise? Well, that is Scenario. Hey, welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks so much, Andy. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here, Steve. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It would be super cool if you could please introduce yourself. Would love to hear some of your personal and professional backstory. What have you been doing in the lead up to co-founding Scenario?
It's a good question. I've been doing a range of things. My background's actually in teaching, but I've been in crypto since 2018 as a kind of user and community member. And over that period of time, I've learned a lot and seen some things that I think could be better and identified some problems I'd like to solve, which is what Scenario is all about. But yeah, I've also got a background in sort of business development, partnership management in my more recent roles working at a university. So a lot of that stuff transfers quite well into what we're doing now with Scenario in terms of growing a product and building partnerships as well.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Well, I guess, let's start at the beginning. What's the origin story, if you like, for Scenario? Who's involved? How long have you been building this thing? What was the problem that you identified, and what's your solution to this?
Well, I would say it traces back to probably 2020-ish for me, where, I was deeply involved in a range of crypto projects and quite a few that had big news items coming that I was excited for, or important events that were on the horizon. Some examples being Chainlink, had a staking program that was expected to launch, but no one knew quite when that would be. And we all knew that we would need to be very quick when it did go live to action it. There'd be a 2-day window to action it. Other examples would be Eigenlayer recently on Ethereum and, Ethereum staking and all sorts of things that I was really anticipating, but finding it super hard to keep track of when they were going to happen and, make sure I didn't miss them really. And we all know that familiar problem of, you follow a project on X or jump into their Discord, and before you know it, there's 20 or 30 or 40 of them, and you're getting a lot of pings and a lot of information that isn't really what you're waiting to hear about. So that was the problem I was looking to solve. And the solution in my mind was the fact that there's already a lot of tuned in people that do know when those things happen. It's a subset of the users that are kind of always online in that community. And I needed a way to leverage that knowledge and have them tell me when something that I was waiting for in a very particular, specific way had happened. And I think crypto is so well suited to that being a way to solve that problem, because we have hyper connected, hyper engaged people in niche communities who have information that's valuable to a lot of other people who maybe are busier than they are, or have a different set of priorities, or aren't able to get that information. So that's really what Scenario is all about. And I co-founded it probably about 2 years ago. We started talking about it. A friend of mine is Andy Lower. He and I met through the ETH Lizards community. It's an NFT community that sprung up a couple of years ago. And yeah, he and I complement each other really well. He's got a lot of the technical skills, full stack developer. And he and I have built out the product into its current state today, which is an early access sort of mode.
Right. So what you're talking about is you've, identified this problem. You're in, too many communities. There's too many things going on. It's very hard to keep track of all the different information streams. I'm thinking of kind of 2021. NFT era is a really good example of that, is particularly what you're talking about with all the Discord communities and all these random NFT projects that you're following. They're minting at different times, and there's different things you have to do to earn different airdrops or whatever it is. And that was overwhelming. So I can see why, something like this would be kind of born out of that kind of problem. But am I right in thinking, Steve, that what you're really talking about is taking this, the idea would be information, data points far outside of, the crypto ecosystem out into the real world as well?
100%. Yeah. So whilst the origin of it was certainly that very much Web3 centric element, as the more we've worked on it, talked about it, created it, it's very obvious to us that there's a lot of uses that go, well, there's really no limit to the number of use cases. So anything that anyone would like to know about and be told in a particular specific way when that event has happened can be used or done through this platform. And so some other examples would, be politics, fantasy sports, gaming, entertainment, anything that someone has either just a purely personal interest in or maybe a financial interest in knowing about when it happens. This is a scenario allows them to get that. And I guess the interesting thing about this is it's a two-sided marketplace for information, much like something like Airbnb or Uber. You're taking one group of people who have a service to offer, which in this case is their knowledge of certain topics, and another set of users who want that information and are prepared to pay a small amount, a small fee for that. And we're bringing those parties together. And then the blockchain element is really the consensus about reaching agreement about the fact that something has happened, attesting to that on chain, which is then triggering an alert. And of course, one of the reasons for having it on chain is that there can be some collateral attached to that and some kind of reputation built up and a sort of skin in the game that if you are acting as a confirmer or triggering alerts that you can demonstrate your commitment to that service and be slashed if you're doing a bad job.
Yeah, right. So just to explain a bit more how that works in terms of, how there's the confirmers on one side, and what do you call the other side, the people that are looking for the information? What are we calling them?
Well, I think it's probably best to call them askers, or simply users. Like
exactly.
In our mind,
sure.
Yeah, they are our main audience. They're the bulk of our users. Like once we reach scale, it's probably going to be that 95% of the users of Scenario are end users who would like to know something. And then you have a subset of very tuned in people who are confirming.
And just give us, I know that, this will work itself out over time and there'll be so many different scenarios, if you like, but give us an example of what a scenario might look like in terms of, an asker or a user, and then a confirmer or group of confirmers, how the kind of the payment structure would work and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start with the payment structure side. So there's so many ways we can make this work that we're testing at the moment, where our early access phase has just started, and it's going to be quite a process of us looking at different models of how it works. But what we imagine is that something like $1 per notification might be common to pay, and there might be 10, 20, 30, 40 people or more who want that exact notification. There'll be some really popular ones where there's hundreds or thousands of people that might like it as well. But we sort of see that as a bounty. And in this case, it'll be an on-chain bounty that is sitting there waiting to be claimed by whoever can be first, and maybe the collection of people who can be first to come along and say, yeah, this has actually happened. We're going to trigger that. So one of the ideas we have is that there could be a tiered system based on the reputation of the parties that are acting as confirmers. So if you've got a demonstrated history of being, for example, very much an expert on Ethereum-related topics, and you've successfully triggered hundreds of alerts, you've never had those disputed, you might have a really high ranking and be able to charge a little bit more, or people have to actually opt in to getting that high level of service from you. Another way it can be done is simply the people who are asking for the alert can choose how many people they think need to confirm it before they get the alert. So if you want like really high level of assurance that something has happened, you could say like, I want 20 people or 30 people to have confirmed that. If you favor speed and you're not as worried, then maybe you just pick one. So there's so many ways of tiering that within the actual app and the interface to make it easy for people to see, okay, I've got some choices both about how much I pay, but also the quality of what I might be getting. But in terms of examples, like I'll just give you one extremely simple example, which has come up because it's on our current early access version of the app, which is, people who might want to know when Base makes any announcement about a token. We know that tokens are a popular topic in crypto. So at the moment, there's really no way to be told about that without getting a lot of other noise in your notification inbox. Funnily enough, Andy and I, in setting up this version of the site, have needed to track that ourselves, because at the moment it's the team that are triggering the small number of alerts that we have in this first sort of demo version of the app. And I can tell you that since I signed up to getting notifications on X from Base, so I can personally be aware of that to trigger it, I'm getting a lot of stuff that I don't want to know about. So we think that's a really simple example of how people want to know this, but maybe just don't want to be seeing all the other notifications from base. But the other examples that I think personally interest me are definitely around like fantasy sports, very popular across the world, hundreds of thousands to millions of players. And often people have 10 or 20 players they have a vested interest in out of hundreds in that league. And they really only want to know news about those players, like when someone's injured or when someone's unavailable to play. But all the services that exist now really are just focused on much broader alerts than that. You can't really get tailored alerts about particular players. So that's another example I think is really interesting and that we'll explore in future.
Yeah, very nice, Steve. It strikes me that there's differences. I'm sure you've thought about this, but you will have been watching the rise of the prediction markets, which is, what's the big one called? It's just names.
Polymarket.
Polymarket. Yeah, name escaped me for a second there. But Polymarket, yeah, obviously really rose to fame during the US election last year because, of course, election markets and polls are really what drives that kind of stuff. And the question was, would the interest remain after the election? And I think the answer to that is yes, because Polymarket continues to, be very popular and people are increasingly trusting the results that come from the prediction markets. Of course, prediction markets are not a new thing. There's been various Ethereum-based prediction markets since the birth of Ethereum, really, but it's Polymarket is the one that's kind of taken off. How do you see Scenario kind of complementing, or what are the kind of key differences or similarities in something like Scenario versus Polymarket?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously, at the heart of Scenario, there's this consensus mechanism, which is a decentralized group of people coming together and agreeing that something has happened and they're testing to that on-chain. So in some ways, Scenario is an oracle. It is complementing the existing set of oracles. And the biggest ones out there are Chainlink and UMA. And I think UMA actually powers Polymarket consensus. So Scenario in some ways is adding to that collection of oracle services that are out there and creating a really diverse long tail of on-chain information about things that have happened as an oracle as well. So there's nothing to stop us building additional features or having additional actors come along and build on top of Scenario as well. So we could become, in time, it's not our goal initially, but we could actually become, in addition to an alert service with a front end, maybe an oracle to a DeFi protocol or a prediction market, or maybe we could build our own on top of it as well. But I think the biggest differences are that our events that are being triggered are one-off events that tell me when X happens. And when X happens, the notification is sent. So that differs from Chainlink in it's often more of a price feed or a regular, like a ping update every 10 minutes when things change type of oracle. And Polymarket is we don't know when this will happen, but, or in fact, often Polymarket uses the opposite where there's a set date, like by June 30, this will or won't happen. So those are some of the differences between those and Scenario, but it's a space we're excited to see where we can go with it, because the initial use case that most excites me is the alerts, because it's what spawned the idea, but there's so much more that it can be done with it beyond that.
Yeah, fascinating. And I like the Chainlink Oracle relationship as well. Because people have been waiting for that the Oracle solutions to kind of really roll out and be effective, and I guess it is starting to happen. But can really see a scenario in which Scenario could be a good input into Oracle systems such as Chainlink, right, Steve?
Exactly. Yeah, we think that's possible, but we are, I guess, realistic about the fact that we don't need to make that the top priority. Yeah. And one of the things that I think we are aware of as well is what's nice about having an alerts-based system initially is that there's some room to do some testing and learning where what is at stake is an accurate alert or an inaccurate alert. Once you really go into the Oracle space and you say, we are here to help power a DeFi protocol or a prediction market that might have large sums of money at stake, you do want to be confident that the Oracle itself is extremely robust. So that's why we can do a lot of testing through this phase as we build our first product to make sure that it is.
Just looking through your docs, and you talk about the SNR token. Yeah, and you use the acronym signal to noise ratio, which is pretty cool. So yeah, just what is the what's the thinking there? How's the what would the tokenomics look like? How are the tokens going to be important?
A range of ways, and again, we have the luxury in some ways of making sure we test this properly. So there is no token yet,
Yep.
and we don't think there will be for some time, but we do know that a token is a core element of making this work. And so some of the things the token will do is be connected to reputation, user reputation, and also access. So the ability to have the right to be a confirmer. If you would like to come along and be someone who says, I think I've got some knowledge on a topic and I want to trigger alerts, then the token in some ways is an access pass to do that. And also it's a way for you to show you've got skin in the game. You know that you're putting collateral at stake. And if you do a poor job, you know, you have something to lose in that. So there's a range of ways it will be used, but we've got some advisors we're working with that will be very good at helping us steer it from a tokenomics side to be effective. And I guess the current early access mode is a pre-token mode, is a pre-on-chain mode. And we have a reputation score that we're using as a kind of precursor to test and measure some of the incentive mechanisms and then the penalty mechanisms that will underpin what we then build on-chain.
Yeah, nice. So you talked about, Steve, the early access phase. So let's just dive into that. Just explain again what the early access phase is, presuming that we're still in that early access phase now. I hope we are. But yeah, what can people do? How can people take advantage of that, and why is it important? For everyone.
Yeah, it certainly is open. We only really went live with that about a week ago. So we see it as a phase with a few stages in it, where initially at the moment there are just 9 team-created scenarios, very, very early days. So you can come along, you can have a look at those 9 and essentially sign up if you'd like to be alerted to some of those. You can start building the reputation score that we think is going to be important for the coming months and years by bringing other people to the platform, helping us get early users in, joining up with some of the scenarios we've created, but also within probably a few days, we're opening up the ability to start entering in your own pre-launch scenario entries that you've actually thought of yourself. So if there's something that you are waiting for or soon, I should say, not quite yet, but within a few days, there'll be a little entry section on the early access app where users can have some fun thinking about what they would like to be told about. And then we can start to actually select some of our favorites as well, potentially, and have them become live alerts. And then we're going to be transitioning towards the stage where it's actually the users who are also confirming and triggering the alerts. And I think that's a really exciting, fun phase because personally, I enjoy thinking about the various topics that I'd like to hear about and seeing what others are hearing about. And also for those people that are kind of immersed in a topic now, it's a chance to start thinking about how they could monetize that or be rewarded for that knowledge in the future. So to track, okay, there's 100 people who want to hear about this. I think I'm probably going to know about that pretty quickly when it happens. I'm going to favorite that and keep it, monitor it, and maybe I can be the one that claims that bounty when it happens. So yeah, there's a lot that we'll be adding over the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, fascinating. And yeah, I'm just looking through those. The scenarios that you mentioned. There's as you say 9 of them. Yeah, the interesting ones to me, or the one you used the base if base makes an announcement about a base token. You reference that example that is there. I like this one, Steve. An AI system passes the speech Turing test. There'd be a lot of interest in that. Be good to have that as an alert. OpenSea announced steps to check the community C token. Can see, a lot of those NFT holders from 2021 would be keen on that one. Yeah, and of course a big European soccer football club signed a new striker or something. Yeah, it's another. Yeah, they all make sense to me. They're all really quite valuable data points, and you can see them. A lot of people would sign up to those kind of scenarios, Steve.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what really shocked me was how much this is actually needed. So I felt that it was needed. We built the early access app. And as I was saying before, we sat down with this thought of, okay, we've made our 9. And just for now, we as the team have to trigger these. And I didn't quite realize how hard it was going to be to get this information without filtering out, without having to filter out a lot of other information. But it turns out it actually is very hard to get just that. And of course, there are things like Google Alerts and keyword. You can certainly set things up if you want to that might approximate this, but at the moment, it's nowhere near good enough to get just information. There's a lot of noise, a lot of false positives. And I think what might happen in future, this is what we're expecting, is that human users will seek to profit from this service and kind of claim the bounties, but they may well deploy bots and AI agents to help them do that job well. So really, it's kind of an arms race to see who is the best at both speed and accuracy at correctly identifying these things have happened and claiming those bounties to send off the alerts.
Yeah, one of the hardest parts of launching something like this, Steve, you'll only be all too aware, is, I guess going from 0 to 1, getting that first batch of users, getting some momentum happening, making some noise, and just getting some traction, and then the snowball rolling. If you can do that, then you're away. How confident are you that you can kind of roll out from that early access phase and go live and be away with the scenarios?
Well, we're confident, but we are agreed that it's never easy. I think it takes a range of strategies. We're working with communities that we sort of belonged to initially. So some of the NFT communities and some of the Reddit, like the Ethereum Reddit community, just to kind of get those initial highly engaged users. Like they're actually some of the ideal people you would want to come in and be the first users.
Yeah.
So that's step 1. And then obviously step 2 is to be getting, really loud about what we're making and why it's helpful, showing examples to people of that. And I think we've got some exciting sort of referral and Twitter engagement elements that we think will help in the coming weeks as well. But it'll take a lot of work. We know that. But at its heart, I think the product makes sense and people will find it useful.
Yeah, very much so. All right. Well, so just tell people again, if they want to sign up for that early access and get involved, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'd probably direct people to 2 places. The first is scenarioprotocol.io, which is the website itself, and that has a link off to the early access app. Currently, there is an access code needed to actually get into the early access app. So you can either get that by being referred by someone who's currently there, or you can probably use the code first alert. That should still be working. But if it doesn't work, you can jump into our Discord as well, and we can help you out with a link or a ref code. The other place to go would be the tag on Twitter, the handle @scenarioalerts. And that has the link to our Discord, and you can talk to us there. And we're very keen to engage with people now and hear from people with feedback. Our first kind of blog post did say that things are probably going to break a little bit now, or, it's very much an experimental phase now. And that's one of the reasons we've capped access via a code, just to make it a gentle way for us to get going in the next couple of weeks before we really push harder.
Yeah, makes sense. And just as we start to finish off this part of the podcast then, Steve, kind of like what sort of time frames are people looking at? Is there a rough kind of timeline?
Yeah, I think we're looking at 8 weeks or so from now. So this early access phase to us is something in the vicinity of an 8-week period. That may stretch out slightly or come in slightly. There'll be a test net that goes live on base at some point during that 8 weeks, probably later into the 8 weeks. And by the end of the 8 weeks, there'll be some more things that we probably won't mention just yet, but we can say will be quite exciting and fun. And certainly we're looking to get to that stage where people can be creating their own scenarios and getting the alerts for those before too long, and also getting a go at becoming confirmers and having a go at sending off alerts as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, it is time to start to finish off the podcast, Stephen. We do that, of course, by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
I sure am. Yep.
Excellent, Steve. I'm just going to run some questions at you, and I want you to give me your honest answers, hot take style, if you like. No right or wrong way to do it. Question 1 for you, Steve, is Where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I've become more of a maximalist in recent months, like a lot of people may have. I used to be Ethereum maximalist, and now I'm probably a Bitcoin and Ethereum and maybe a Sol. I think it does concentrate to a few for sure over time. Yeah.
Nice. I like it. All right. What would you say, Steve, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That it will succeed, but that people have probably got it wrong in terms of its use case. And I think the financial element and the ownership element really is the killer use case, and people don't need to get too fancy. So I think crypto's here to stay, but it won't replace everything in the way that people thought it might.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice. All right. I agree with that. All right. Steve, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Now, 10 years in crypto is a long time, but anything you like here. In 10 years' time, scenario, Web3, prediction markets, signal to noise, what does it all look like?
Well, can I be as bullish as
please?
All right. Well, I would say in 10 years, I'm gonna be an optimist here, that scenario has succeeded and that there's actually several other products that kind of leverage it. And some apps that are very, very kind of focused on particular topics that kind of connect into it, such as fantasy sports being one, and, similar examples like that. But no, I can see that being quite successful in that time. I'm going to go with the optimistic view.
Yep. It's better to be an optimist than a pessimist, I reckon. Another way of thinking about this is a quote by sci-fi author William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Now, with that in mind, Steve, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Probably I've been feeling that way about AI for the past few months, where people maybe are just beginning to realize what it can do. And you're sort of seeing more people using it for really kind of common things like writing essays and writing emails, and in ways that are transforming people's work. So I think AI is it's shockingly quick in terms of the development, and that the future is clearly there, in my opinion, now.
Yeah, very much so. Have you played around with the voice modes on Grok?
No, I haven't yet. Tell me, what am I missing?
So you've used ChatGPT voice mode?
Yep.
Well, so imagine the Grok voice mode is similar, but it has what Elon calls, there's all these different modes, right? The two that are quite interesting is sexy mode and unhinged mode. And sexy mode, it's actually, there's the AI will talk extremely dirty to you and play all sorts of fantasy role fulfillments. It's quite out there. I was sort of surprised that Elon's just released this thing and no one seems to mind. It's quite good fun. And unhinged mode is literally unhinged. The AI will just swear up and down at you like a drunken Australian sailor. And if you just say, my name is Steve, I'm an Aussie from Melbourne, blah, 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 give it 3 data points about you and then say, roast me hard. And boy, it does a fantastic job of roasting you. It's excellent fun, Steve.
You've given me something to do. As soon as we hang up our call, I have to go and test it.
That's right. All right. It brings us kind of nicely to the final question, Steve, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
I've got to admit, I don't read broadly on science fiction, but one book I did enjoy when I was a bit younger was Ender's Game, which I think is a short kind of classic sci-fi that's got a nice take on like reality and games and immersion in a game, and it's a really cool story. So Ender's Game might be my pick.
Excellent. Yes, indeed. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, ChatGPT tells me, published in 1985, follows young Ender Wiggin, a child prodigy trained through simulated war games to combat an alien threat. Wow, that sounds like fun indeed. Yes, indeed. Won the Hugo and Nebula Awards, Steve.
Yeah, it's a good book. It's not long either. It's not one of those 1,000-page books that'll put you to sleep. It's a pretty short, sharp one.
I like it. All right. Hey, we reached the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming in, spending some time with us, Steve. Just close it out again by telling people where they can go to learn all about what you guys are building with the scenario protocol, how they can get involved, be part of the early access community, and shout out your social medias, all that good stuff. Go for gold.
Will do. Well, head to scenarioprotocol.io to check it out. Follow us on X, which is @scenarioalerts. And from those two places, you'll easily come and find us and get all the info you need. And if you need a ref code, we can help you out too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy. See ya.